Good afternoon. My name is Maya McNutt, and today I'm going to be discussing the career and experience of Taylor Swift when it comes to media. Right now, Taylor Swift is one of the most successful artists of the 21st century, but she is also one of the most heavily scrutinized. Today, I'm specifically going to be exploring the question, how does media coverage of Taylor Swift reflect broader patterns of sexism in celebrity culture as a whole? Today, I plan to argue that the way the media talks about her often reflects sexist patterns, especially through its intense focus on her relationships, the way it normally downplays her artistic control and her artistic ability, and the double standards she is very often held to. Of course, at the same time, she has increasingly pushed back against these narratives over the years, and I will also be discussing the importance of that. To start, it is extremely important to understand that women in celebrity culture are often judged differently than men. For example, female celebrities are much more likely to be asked about their personal lives or relationships in interviews, while male celebrities are usually asked about their work or their creative process. Over time, this creates a pattern where women are constantly asked questions like, "Who is this song about?" Due to this, women's identities tend to become tied to their relationships, their emotions, and sometimes even their physical appearance, instead of their talent, their career trajectory, their future plans, or even their professionalism. Taylor Swift's media coverage fits perfectly and very clearly into this pattern of behavior when it comes to media coverage. Now, earlier on in her career, her coverage focused heavily on her dating life. A lot of headlines and commentary framed her songs as being about ex-boyfriends, and jokes like, "Taylor Swift will write a song about you," became common in popular culture. On top of this, Taylor Swift's songs were often framed as mean or disrespectful towards men that they may or may not have even been about. Even comedians and award shows contributed to this. For example, at the Golden Globes, there was a joke suggesting that she should stay away from men because she dates so much. You often would also see headlines like, "Taylor Swift's many ex-boyfriends," or "Which ex is she singing about now?" From a feminist perspective, this is a very clear double standard, as men do the same. Male artists like Ed Sheeran or John Mayer also write about their relationships and their emotions, but they're not reduced to their dating histories in the same way. So, overall, Swift's work was often taken less seriously just because it was associated with femininity, relationships, and emotions. Now, around 2014 to 2016, media coverage on Taylor Swift focused more heavily on her group of friends that was often referred to as the Girl Squad. During this time, numerous headlines included things like, "Taylor Swift's squad has become a cult," or "Our squad's just the new spin on high school cliques," or "The darker side of Taylor Swift and her girl squad." These kinds of narratives often made her friendships seem fake, like they were strategic or they were intended to manipulate the audience. When it comes to a feminist analysis, this clearly connects how female friendships are usually policed, they're criticized, they're considered not good enough, whether or not you have them. When women form visible, supportive groups, they're very often portrayed as cliquish, insincere, or filled with mean girls. But, on the other hand, male celebrity friend groups, or just celebrity friends, like The Rock and Kevin Hart, don't usually get the same kind of criticism. So it's not about the group itself, it's about the discomfort with women visibly supporting each other, particularly when they are successful women. During the backlash in 2016, media portrayals of Taylor Swift shifted again, and they became even more negative. She was often called calculated, manipulative, or even referred to as a snake, and those labels took over online in headlines, with hashtag Taylor Swift is over party being one of the most utilized hashtags on Twitter. A lot of this coverage framed her as being secretly controlling or dishonest or manipulative, particularly in the popular feud between herself and Kanye West, instead of recognizing that we, the audience, didn't have all of the information and that these were clearly complex situations. This connects to likability politics, where women have to be successful and universally liked. And unfortunately, if they're seen as too ambitious, strategic, or any other type of business minded behaviors, those traits get framed in a negative way almost no matter what. For comparison, male artists, like Justin Bieber, are often described as being bold or powerful, particularly when they're involved with public conflicts against other people or even against the paparazzi. So, this shows a clear double standard in how similar behavior between male and female artists is interpreted entirely differently just based on their gender alone. Now, in the more recent years, Taylor Swift has pushed back against these narratives. One of the biggest examples of this is her decision to re record her albums after she lost control of the original masters. And then at that time, media coverage of this became way more positive, with headlines being Taylor Swift is reclaiming her music and a power move in the music industry. This shows a clear shift in how she was being portrayed, from someone that was defined by other people, by her relationships, or by her emotions, to someone that was recognized for her powerful business decisions and the artistic ownership she takes over her work. She also addressed these issues directly in her documentary Miss Americana, where she talked about how she was pressured to be nice, agreeable, and non confrontational. Then, when Ginny and Georgia, a popular Netflix show, made a joke about going through more men than Taylor Swift, she fought back on social media, claiming this joke was sexist and it was overused. This is a clear example of her reclaiming her own agency within her life. Instead of letting social media and the media as a whole define her, she actively is fighting for a more accurate and fair portrayal of who she is and what her art means. Of course, Taylor Swift's experience reflects that broader pattern within celebrity culture that we brought up at the beginning. The focus on her relationship, the criticism of her friendships, the backlash against her ambition, they are not unique to her. They're part of a larger pattern that affects women in the public eye, specifically female singers. You can see that similar treatment in artists like Britney Spears, Beyonce, and Christina Aguilera, who have faced intense and nearly constant gendered scrutiny. At the same time, Taylor Swift's response to these situations, especially through the previously mentioned re recordings and public statements, has helped bring more attention to these issues and has sparked conversations about sexism in media. Overall, the media coverage of Taylor Swift clearly shows deep rooted sexism in celebrity culture, particularly through its focus on her relationships, its tendency to undermine her art, and the double standards that she has constantly been held to. At the same time, her career also shows how those patterns can be challenged. Through her own actions, through her public voice, she has pushed back against the way she's been portrayed and taking way more control over her own story. In the end, her experience highlights how deeply gendered bias is embedded into the media and why it's important to think critically about how we talk about successful women in the public eye, even when it comes to things that seem trivial. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.